shreds autos into small pieces is a big issue for some neighbors in South Omaha. 6 on Your Side first reported on the controversy 2 months ago.
Today, the company is ready to answer concerns as the Omaha Planning Commission considers a permit. Mike McKnight has more in this 6 on Your Side investigation.
The city put the brakes on the auto shredder after discovering You Pull It didn't pull all the necessary permits.
Unfortunately, in a project of this size and scope, there were some things that were unintentionally looked past.
Some neighbors don't want the planning board to move forward and allow the hammer mill machine to be turned on.
Breaking the rules that this company has done with the health risk to my community and the trust of such a high volume hazardous process should not be placed into a company that has demonstrated no concern for us.
But You Pull It says neighbors' health and safety is a priority.
I have 3 generations of my family who work here. To say that we're intentionally doing something or that it's hazardous is absurd. I wouldn't put my own family at risk.
Noise reducers are being installed, air quality will be monitored, and numerous catch-alls like pig socks can be laid down to keep hazardous waste from leaking into the nearby Papio Creek. The fluid is drained out of these rear ends before they get down here, but occasionally there's some left over. And so the company has thousands of pounds of this floor dry to soak it up. And the company also uses these straw swales to prevent any fluid from leaking farther away from the site. But a fire Tuesday at You Pull It in Lincoln raises concern about lithium batteries igniting metal grindings from the auto shredder at the Omaha site.
We don't like to be concerned. The pictures that we saw of the fire in Lincoln were pretty dramatic, and people were even more concerned having seen that.
You Pull It says thermal imaging cameras will watch the machine for any flames before they get out of hand.
We have the capacity on site to deal with a multi-alarm fire.
But city planning recommends the board not grant a permit to turn on the shredder yet.
There are still environmental concerns and items that have not been adequately addressed.
The board voted to table the permit request.
Approved 7-0.
But You Pull It had flyers on a table outside the hearing that question who is behind Nebraska Future Fund, which is campaigning against the shredder.
I'm near certain that it is our competition operating like machinery that is stirring this up.
Attorney Tom White represents the nonprofit.
We have a whole coalition of different people who have interests in the environmental laws being enforced, period.
Including a competitor.
Sure.
When the planning board takes up the permit issue again, possibly in 2 months, both sides will present every shred of evidence to prove the hammer mill should be turned on or kept off. On Your Side near 60th and Q, Mike McKnight, 6 News.
Another concern raised by neighbors is the auto shredder bringing in more trucks, so they want the city to conduct a traffic study. You Pull It says the grinding of large car parts into small pieces means fewer trucks are needed to transport the recycling material. A rail spur is also planned.